still an insult. You know, I mean, it's great in terms of its political significance, but we're still saying that this is a dangerous drug, and you're a criminal if you use it. You know, to which I say, bollocks. You know, there's only one word for it.
Good line of argument.
Thank you. I always like to appeal to people's reason. So, you know, let's just have a great day in the sunshine. I'm having a lovely time already. Thank you very much. I look forward to getting to know you all better during the course of the day. I will mention just a couple of other brief points if I'm not running over too long. No? Okay. Because one of the interesting personal aspects on cannabis that I have is really how much should I allow myself to use. And I do think one of the things that the Legalized Cannabis Alliance hopefully can do is set a good example for what I would call enlightened use of cannabis. The subject I'm supposed to be speaking on today is medical value. Well, I don't have to preach to the converted on the medical value of cannabis. It is actually the greatest medicine in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. You know, end of argument. But I think there is a tendency to feel that if we get cannabis legalized, then everybody can just be bombed all day, every day. And I don't think that personally is the sort of image that we want to be projecting. I'm getting a little older now, and I find that less is more. I find if I can use it on a more occasional basis. When we were growing, because we had this great bud and it was like available 24, we were bombed 24/7, you know, for 4 years. I needed to go to prison just to kind of calm down a little bit. And when I was in prison, I wrote a short article called Cannabis, A Balanced View, which is what I felt that prison had helped me to achieve. Some people, I think, felt that I'd sold out and that I was no longer a supporter of cannabis. That would never be the case. But I think what I'd realized is that there is a middle path. You know, I've been interested in Buddhism all my life, and they talk about the golden mean or the middle way, you know, and I think that's important. I find if I can stop myself smoking during the week, for example, and then I have a smoke at the weekend, I enjoy it 10 times more than I've been smoking all week. So I think there's a yin and a yang of it, if you know what I mean. And I've never liked the fact that we have to smoke, and I'm looking forward to being able to go and buy, you know, my cannabis pills from Boots, you know, or some kind of spray that goes on, because let's not kid ourselves. We cannot say that cannabis has no side effects whatsoever. That would be naive and misleading. I certainly think if you're smoking cannabis all the time, you need to be careful about the amount of tar that you're putting into your lungs. It's not as bad as nicotine, but that doesn't mean that it's not bad for you, you know, and you can damage your health. And sadly, I know a number of long-time smokers who undoubtedly have damaged their health. And so on a purely personal point, I just offer that to you as something that I think if I was a perfect human being, I probably wouldn't need to smoke cannabis anymore. And therefore, if I can keep my personal use to a reasonable level, I'm not going to damage my lungs, I'm not going to burn too many brain cells or whatever I might do, and I'll live a long and happy life. So I just throw that in for your personal consideration, because it's a topic that's exercising my mind at the moment, and I think it's something that we need to be clear what sort of lifestyle we're recommending and what sort of lifestyle we represent to people who I think will increasingly turn to us in the years to come, and they will say, you know, you probably have family members who hopefully will say to you, well, I've never tried cannabis, you know, can you put me through the experience? A lot of people are frightened. It does take courage to get stoned. You are going into the unknown. Every time you smoke a joint, you take a voyage of adventure. And that takes guts, in my opinion. You know, and I think a lot of people who are opposed to cannabis are because they don't have the bottle, you know, to try it for themselves and realize what an extraordinary experience it is. Anyway, thank you for listening to me this morning. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I do have one final point that I would like to say. There's a lot to talk about this afternoon in terms of the future direction of the LCA and what we think our objectives are and what we're trying to achieve. And I'm looking forward to that debate very much. One of the questions in that debate, which Alan and I have talked about already, is a question of leadership and how you effectively run a party or group or alliance such as ours, and what the best structure and tactics are for the future, and what we're trying to achieve, and whether or not we need some form of leadership. I would say that I feel that we already have a very effective form of leadership, and Alan, of course, would be far too modest to describe himself as a leader, but my personal opinion is that the LCA is very lucky to have exactly the right sort of leadership for this party at this point in time. And I think Alan's done a fantastic job over the years of really just staying focused on what was important and also being personally supportive to the other people in the movement. And I'm sure that he deserves to take more satisfaction from current events than almost anybody else. But I just wanted to pay that tribute to Alan. He's a good friend and a great campaigner, and in my opinion, he's what I would call a cultural hero. I mean, we maybe don't have the massed ranks of the media watching us here today. They're probably watching a chap called Tony Blair and his associates. As far as I'm concerned, what they're doing is largely peripheral and marginal and unimportant. I think what George Bush and his bully boys in the American military are doing is largely shameful and disgraceful, and will go down in history, with a very black mark against it. I think what's really happening is that cannabis is becoming liberated to perform the healing job across the planet that it needs to do, because there are so many people in pain, there are so many people living in miserable circumstances, and I have believed for some time that the legalization of cannabis was the most important single act that needed to occur in order to cut what I call the Gordian knot of current politics. I believe that for some time the liberalization of cannabis would actually produce a change in world politics, that it was the one thing that needed to occur in order for all of those global political issues that we find so distressing to be properly addressed. And what I find really optimistic about today is the fact that cannabis is being liberalized. And I genuinely believe that all of those beneficial changes that will happen over the next 10 or 20 years are now set in motion. And I believe that we can expect life to improve as the healing ripples of cannabis extend out across global society. And so with that, hopefully, positive thought, I'll leave you, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Robin.